G'day and welcome to Crank the Third. My name is Trevor Young. Now, if you look up the word eclectic in the dictionary, I'm sure there will be a picture there of my next guest. Her name is Valerie Khoo, and when it comes to professional evolution, Valerie is definitely the Queen of Reinvention. Valerie has successfully navigated multiple careers in her professional life. Well, I'm talking accounting, PR, journalism, public speaking, entrepreneurship, and the visual arts. She's a published author and the founder of the Australian Writers' Centre, which has trained over 100,000 students worldwide since opening its doors in 2005. She also hosts the popular podcast, So You Want to Be a Writer, which has had over 3 million downloads. And if that wasn't enough, she was for several years the curator of Sydney's Lunar Festival, and this is one of Sydney's major arts cultural festivals with over 1.4 million people attending the last event. Valerie's creative journey took an unexpected turn when she picked up a paintbrush and discovered her passion for visual art. So if you're keen to better understand what it takes to reinvent yourself professionally, perhaps you're keen to get out of the corporate cubicle and to do something new, or if you run a business, maybe there's some different projects outside of your company that you might want to get involved with. If building a portfolio career is on your radar, you will love this inspiring conversation with Valerie Khoo. Let's begin. Valerie Khoo, welcome to Crank the Third. What were you doing 15 years ago?
15 years ago, oh my goodness, Trevor. Okay, so 15 years ago was 2009. I would have been in about the fourth year of my business, the business that I started 4 years before that, which was the Australian Writers' Centre. And I think at the fourth year, you're in that period where things are growing, right? And it's no longer quite the startup phase. Things are growing, but then when things are growing, you're dealing with all these things that you have to, that are all new to you, because growth creates a situation where suddenly you have to think about scaling, where suddenly you have more staffing issues than before. So I think I was trying to be an octopus is probably the short answer.
I love it. I love it. Oh, and we're going to go back even maybe a bit further than 15 years shortly, because of this is all about reinvention and evolution. And I'm going to call you the Queen of Reinvention. just
all right, I'll take it.
You might want to see if the .com's available on that. But before we get into the serious stuff, what is an album, a music album, that you keep coming back to? Maybe it's a singer or a band that has been a constant in your life, or one that you're listening to a lot of right now.
So I probably have more than one, if you can indulge me, because
Okay.
my loyalty and love for the love of my life, John Bon Jovi, will forever remain constant. So I have to mention that because, you know, he has been with me for decades.
Yep.
More recently, I have been listening to The Killers. I have been listening to Rebel Diamonds, which is the greatest hits, and I have been listening to Hot Fuss because it's the 20th anniversary of Hot Fuss this year. So I have been obsessed with The Killers. I went to the Killers concert, blew my mind. They were on twice in Sydney, and I went both nights. Two completely different shows. The second show was the shock of your life because it was the original band that have not they have not toured together since like 2016. So the stadium went wild.
The Killers. And did you see the Bon Jovi long doco? I forget which of the streaming services.
Yes.
It was an amazing, about a 6-parter, wasn't it? It was quite long.
It was long. It was good. I thought that, you know, had I directed it, I might have directed it in a different way. I would have loved the opportunity. But yes, of course, I watched it as soon as it came out.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, we've got a fair bit to cover. Now, I'm going to throw these at you. Accountant, journalist, speaker, author, podcaster, curator, entrepreneur, and now artist and creative director of your own art and design business. Valerie Khoo, this is your life. Now, can you walk us through this journey? And because I want to get into, you know, how and why and all your tips about how you do reinvent, because you've, you know, very, I wouldn't say chameleon-like, very eclectic. I reckon if you looked up the dictionary and looked up the word eclectic, and there'd be a photo of you then. Just walk us through that. So you were an accountant, but, you weren't just in some small little accountancy firm. You were with PwC, one of the big four accounting firms. Walk us back to then and just come forward to now.
All right. Well, I actually studied economics and accounting at university, and it just sort of became a normal thing to join a chartered accounting firm or go into industry. I just went on the conveyor belt and did what everybody else did because you're young and you don't really know any better. And it was a great opportunity. I had a really good experience. I learnt a lot. But I have to say that when I was at school, I was always interested in creativity and writing, but I never thought of it as a real job. I just thought you became a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or an engineer, right? Because that was what was in my frame of reference, in my family and my family's connections and so on. And I didn't know any writers. I didn't know any artists. I didn't know any of these things. So it never even occurred to me at all that those things were a possibility as a career because I just didn't know anybody. So I did have an interest in economics, and I ended up studying accounting, to be honest, by process of elimination. I just didn't want to do kind of like the other subjects that were on offer. So anyway, I went into accounting, and it was certainly interesting and a great experience. However, it wasn't where my soul really wanted to be. And that soon became apparent because after a period of doing something like that isn't nourishing your soul, you get that feeling on a Sunday night in the pit of your stomach where you actually feel sick and you don't want to go to work the next day. It's an awful, awful feeling to face Monday. And that's when I realized I've got to do something about that. And so, I did. I started looking at other opportunities. And even then, even though I went to study journalism at UTS in a graduate diploma, I still didn't think of it as a real job. I didn't know any journalists. But I thought, I'll just study it and we'll see. So I kind of did this sneaky sideways thing, not believing I could actually get into journalism because I wanted to write for magazines. But I thought, well, a good middle ground where I can still have that corporate experience and still write a bit is PR. So I went into PR and I thought, okay, well, that'll satisfy me, and it certainly did for a little while.
As a consultant, you're a consultant or in-house?
As a PR consultant for two different agencies.
Okay.
And I certainly did satisfy that creative urge for a little while. And until I kind of started realizing, I think I really want to be a writer. And that had been there the whole time, but I never allowed myself, never listened to it. So I woke up one day, 1 September, and and realized I have to give it a go. And that's when I threw everything at it. And and a month later I got an offer of a dream job. But I threw everything at it for that month.
Yeah. So you were, if I get my facts right, you're a features director for Clio magazine and a deputy editor at Clio Singapore. Clio being in its heyday, one of the biggest magazines for young women in Australia and obviously overseas as well. And then you went on to write for Fairfax Media for listeners overseas. They run a number of newspapers, The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. So they're one of the preeminent, dominant media companies in Australia. So they're two very well-known media titles. What was that like? Did that satisfy you? How long were you a full-time journalist?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I did that for quite a while. And the thing is that, being a journalist was very satisfying. But what's interesting is when you're a journalist, you have a beat, you have a particular topic. And so I worked for Clio collectively for maybe 4 years. And after writing about, relationships, fashion, celebrities and orgasms for quite a long period, not necessarily knowing.
In that order.
You can't. I wanted to write about other things.
Yes.
And that's why I went freelance, because that gave me the opportunity really to explore the things I was interested in. Mm-hmm. And while I know some freelancers who they only want to write about the arts or they only want to write about sport or whatever, I actually did want to write about lots of things. And I loved that period of freelancing. I was full-time freelancing. It was really busy. But because I loved the fact that I could interview, Michael Dell one day and John Bon Jovi the next next day, and a tiny small business owner over the corner shop the next day. So I just loved the fact that I could give into my curiosity and explore the things that I was interested in. So yeah, that went on for decades.
And you then had a column, like a small business column?
Yes, so I had the entrepreneurship column with The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, and I did that for 7 years, and I loved it. It was great because I love the world of small business. I love the world of entrepreneurship. So it really enabled me to meet so many people, ask all my questions. These were all questions that I could then apply to my own life and my own enterprises, my own business. During that time, I started a social enterprise, which was a fashion and design business. We had a store in Pitt Street Mall, and we donated 100% of profits to support an orphanage in Cambodia. And that went on for 7 or 8 years or so. And so it was a very busy period.
There's a couple of things you're adding into this. I had my whole list, and you've added PR consultant and running a fashion social enterprise. So I'll mark those ones down. But I guess bringing your economics degree and your training in with PwC and all of your experience there with writing is I guess if we've got putting together a Venn diagram, it's a nice little blend of skills that you're putting to good use.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very, very grateful that I had the background in education that I had. Not that that means that I know everything. I don't at all. But I think what it did was that it equipped me with the skills to know that I could figure things out.
Yep. So at what point then did you go from freelancing to start the Australian Writers Centre? And can you give us a bit of a breakdown of that as an enterprise?
Sure, there was a bit of an overlap. What I wanted to do was create, because I came to writing later in life. I didn't know it was a thing, right, when I was making my career decisions. And when I was trying to discover the world of writing, I had to go to so many different providers of so many different levels of quality. And there was no real consistency in what they were offering or what they were teaching. And I wanted to create that single place where people who were interested in writing would be able to go and know that there was quality and know that there was consistency in messaging and a real benchmark for, their level of education and what they were going to learn.
And so humble beginnings, starting a writing school, basically. How big is it now? I think the only stats that I had was you'd had over 23,000 students, but that was in 2015. Have you got an updated figure on that?
I do, actually. So I started off, it was humble beginnings, and I was really lucky that I actually had a landlord at the time who he had sort of like a training room, and he was, because to hire a training premises is not cheap, and he was very kind, and he said, okay, look, why don't you advertise your classes, and if you get the numbers, you pay me to rent the training room. If you don't get the numbers, you don't have to, which was just a lovely, lovely gesture. And it took the risk away from, me. And so I started off with a class of 6 students. I remember some of their names to this day. And the most updated figures, we've had well over 100,000 students now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're more online these days because you were in the early days face-to-face.
Yes.
Was that because of COVID you had to go online, or you beat the wave to it?
Yeah, so we were all face-to-face, 100% face-to-face initially, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, whatever. But then we started doing online just because there were people in, Broken Hill or wherever who wanted to do it. And so we had a mix of online and face-to-face. But then, of course, COVID happened and everything went online, and people just really started to embrace Zoom, embrace online, embrace the flexibility of it. Prior to that, a lot of people they were scared of it because they didn't know it was going to work. And then they figured out it could work and could work really well, and they didn't have to leave the comfort of their home.
And they're writers, they don't want to go out, very introverted, a lot of them.
That's right. And also, people with kids, it was a lot easier and more convenient. So, so we went online. We started online before COVID, but when COVID came, we were already ready.
And I've done one of your classes, so one of your mystery thriller, crime thriller classes online.
Crime and thriller writing.
There was a bunch of us on that. It was a good experience. And so as part of that, so you're the founder, so you're still the CEO of that. Clearly, and we'll probably get into this, but your day-to-day, you've probably gone from nearly full-time on it to how much of your workday would it be now?
Basically what happened was I discovered the world of art, and I'm now a visual artist. I'm an oil painter, and I sell my paintings and I sell fine art prints, and that happened actually because there was a period where all my friends would say to me, "You really need a hobby." And after several, years of hearing this, I thought, oh, they're saying it for a reason. Maybe I do. And I didn't know what I wanted to have as a hobby. And the only way to find out what was going to pique my interest was to try a lot of things.
Yep.
So that's exactly what I did. And as you try a lot of things, you kind of then go, well, I'm not that into that, but I'm into this. I'm not that into that, but I'm into this. And I found my thing, right? Painting, oil painting. And I love it. And I have to say it's probably 50-50.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And you do other things though. So I want to delve really into the visual arts, because that's a U-turn. That's everything else is kind of, there's some logic step there. This one's a little bit different.
Yes.
So you were, as part of the Writer's Centre, you've done a number of podcasts, but your long-running one is what? So You Want to Be a Writer?
So You Want to Be a Writer.
So that's had something like over 2 million downloads, and something like
3 million. 3
million
million now.
You better update it on your on your promo material. 3 million, that's off the charts, and you're up to about 640 plus episodes. So
yeah, I can't remember.
So you're a podcaster. You're a speaker. So there might have been a time when you did more speaking, but you sort of done speaking MC sort of work as well. I got to consult my list here. Then you're a curator. So you curated what was the festival?
The City of Sydney Lunar Festival.
Fantastic. So that you did that for a couple of years. Again, This is your life. And you're a published author, of course. So that makes sense. You're a writer, and you've written a book called Power Stories. So there's a little bit more put into that. Concertinaed into that, but let's get into this U-turn. So it was by accident, really, serendipity, that you found you're an artist, and you do it. Explain, because podcast being such a visual thing, medium, you paint, and a lot to do with flowers and fauna, but you've also done wall hangings, and you walk us through your artistic vision, as it were. What do you do in art-wise?
Predominantly, I do oil painting of flowers, but I have done other types of art and other types of mediums, because it's always good to stretch yourself and to explore other things. But my day-to-day, the thing that I'm known for, the things that sell on a regular basis, are my oil paintings of flowers and still life, definitely, as well.
Yep.
But, for example, I was commissioned by the City of Sydney to design and create a 5-metre sculpture, which was to be part of an exhibition at the Sydney Lunar Festival of a giant illuminated rooster. And that was then ultimately situated on the Opera House forecourt, sort of like situated between the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge. Mm-hmm. And that was an incredible experience. So that's not my day-to-day, because my day-to-day is oil painting. But I had to conceive and design and sketch out and all of that. And that took months of creation. Obviously, it's made out of metal, and I don't even remember how many lights that were all strung together to look like kind of a chandelier, a giant 5-metre chandelier. And so it's good to explore other mediums, because it certainly stretches you and makes you bring in other parts of your experience in your brain and ideas. But it's good fun.
So you hadn't really done much in that work before, a very high-profile public art?
Yeah. I think public art is such an incredible privilege and an incredible collaborative experience because you actually have to think of, the weight and the where it goes and the wind and the velocity and all that kind of stuff. But I think that I always say to people, you don't have to. You can leap. You don't have to ladder climb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes if you have the opportunity to leap to a certain opportunity or level or high profile thing, give it a go. You never know.
And you're not some starving artist in the garret, having one painting per year or something. You're quite prolific.
Yes, it's good fun. I don't like the idea of the starving artist. I think that it's such a romantic notion that that's in operas and books and stuff like that. But hey, I got to eat and I got to pay my mortgage, so I do need to get paid for the time that I put into things.
And so 50% of your time. So what's a day look like for you then now? Are you still doing other things like speaking and other writing, or it's pretty much I run the Writers' Centre and I paint and I don't do much else?
I run the Writers' Centre and I paint. I do less speaking than I used to because when COVID happened and you kind of stopped speaking, I realised I love this. I don't have to get on a plane. I don't have to rush to an event. I don't have to think about how my feet are going to hurt at the end of the day. So I actually really realised, I actually don't want to do as much speaking as I used to. I still do it from time to time, but I used to do it a lot.
Yep.
And so I purposely actually cut back on
Yep.
quite a few of those things because they actually took a lot of time as well.
Yes.
So, but I also, I'm on the board of a small bank, and that is something that I'm very passionate about, and I spend my time doing that as well.
So you've still got a portfolio career now. I mean, probably more of a portfolio career, whereas before you were probably, focusing on one thing at a time, but now it's probably blossomed more into a bona fide portfolio career.
Yes. And then it's good. I like the variety.
Yeah. And so with I've heard that you've talked about the importance of adaptability in today's world. We're in a very fast-paced world, and being able to adapt to the circumstances around you is important. Can you share, putting you on the spot here, a specific instance where your ability to pivot or to change or to adapt was pretty crucial to what you were doing?
That's a good question. I think one of the things I will say about that is I do think it's important to adapt, but that is underpinned by this concept that I just believe that lifelong learning is so important and so vital, not only regardless of any professional opportunities that might arise from lifelong learning, just for your brain, for your health, for your mental health, for your physical health as well. I was listening to somebody, the other day who is he's in his 30s and his mother is 55. And he was saying that he was appalled that his mother was asked to learn this new thing at work. And he was saying, why should she? She's 55. She should be 55 is not that old. He's saying, why should she? She's 55. She should just be able to work and do the job that she wants and not have to be able to learn new things. And I felt really sad for him and felt really sad for his mother because while, yes, she may not want to learn that new thing, it's the attitude of, she shouldn't have to. In fact, embracing new things and learning new things is, as I said, so important for your health. And so I just think that having that open mind to learning new things, and you might kind of have that hesitance at first, I don't want to learn this. Just get over it because you might actually love it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And if I look back at what you've done, I mean, you got to a point in a couple of jobs, in your heart that you're in the wrong spot now. It may have taken a couple of years, but you get to a point where I'm a bit like that, I've got to move on and do something different. And I think, a lot of people feel that in their own jobs. And I guess the thing with that is, though, because you had other interests, you were always learning, you'd studied, you're obviously clearly a curious person, just naturally. You had other things to go on to, where I guess where people get stuck is they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah, I was there though. When all my friends were saying go do a hobby, it took me years of kind of thinking, oh well, am I interested in, it took me years of saying to them, but there's nothing I'm that interested in. And I didn't know what to do next. And it was fortuitous that I just happened to meet this guy who lives down the road here. And I only met him because there was a thing in this area called Open Studios. And I visited his studio and I saw that he did classes. But what happened was I went there every Saturday afternoon, and every Saturday afternoon he did something new. See, he offered a brand new thing. So it wasn't a course in painting for 6 weeks. One day it was painting, one day it was shibori, one day it was woodwork, one day it was metalwork, one day it was... So it was this fast track to discovering new things. And that was the thing that opened my mind to, oh, I'm not so interested in that, but I'm interested in that. So you might not have the opportunity to meet a guy like that. So you just need to tell yourself, okay, well...
Be open for it.
Yeah, this weekend I'm going to try this. Next weekend I'm going to try something else, and so on.
And when you first picked up a brush, were you any good? How does this happen? Like, you had no inkling, basically, apart from the fact I'll have a crack at this because I'm having a go at all sorts of things. Were you just a genius straight up? I mean, seriously, I'm interested. How does that happen?
No, and not at all. The first one I did was this abstract class down the road with a lovely lady called Maggie, and it was not like what I produced was not good, but I loved it. Right? That's the thing. And then I did another course with her, and if you look at what I produced with her that time, it was horrendous, but I loved it. So that was the telltale sign for me. I was drawn to it. It resonated with me for some reason, even though you look at it now and you just go, in fact, I don't think I still have it. It was just really bad. But that feeling, and I'm pointing to my heart, that feeling of, oh, there's something here, was the thing that kept me going.
Still want to know how long it took for you to be good. Like, just gives a feeling like, okay, so you started with abstract, you did all these other things, you tried. So did you go out and say, okay, I'm going to give this oil painting gig a crack, and you went out and bought stuff and set up a studio, and what?
Yeah, okay.
You know, did you spend your weekends doing it?
Initially,
paint us a picture on that. Boom, boom.
Initially, I spent my weekends doing it, of course, because you're just doing it for fun and you're just exploring new things, and people are saying nice things and you get motivated. But it is a hobby, right? But then I realised also that I was spending a lot of money on because the amount of money you have to spend on art materials is way more than the amount of money you need to spend on writing. All you need is a computer. Or you don't even need a computer. You need a pencil and a piece of paper to write, right? It costs practically nothing to become a writer. It costs more to become an artist. So I realized I was spending this money, and I thought, oh, well, can I tax deduct this? And my partner is the most conservative person on earth. He's a tax accountant. He's the most conservative person on earth. He says, no, you can't unless you earn X amount. So suddenly my motivation was, I have to earn X amount in order to be able to tax deduct.
This is the accountant coming out in you.
Yeah, that's right. So bizarrely, that was an initial kind of goal, to be honest. And to earn X amount, you have to produce more. And when you produce more, you have to paint more, and you get better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just get better through. It's the classic Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. Even though people say yes, that's been debunked or whatever, but still, the more reps you put in, the better you get at it. Yeah.
And so
we can thank the Australian Taxation Office.
You're probably one of the very few artists in the world that probably are thinking that way, but given your background, of course. And so what was it like to sell your first bit of art, and how did that come about?
Instagram, I think.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So that was great. It was a wonderful feeling. And then I got more through Instagrams, through people who were connected with me already on Instagram. And Yeah, that it's a very validating experience, but of course you still get filled with self-doubt in lots of ways. A great one is your first painting who is bought by somebody who is not your friend, who is a complete stranger,
Yeah.
and that's pretty wonderful. And then you get your first overseas purchase, and then you get your first overseas purchase from somebody who doesn't know you. That's yeah.
They're all the
it's really good.
milestones. And so with your first sale, was you just showing off your artwork and someone said, "Can I buy that?" Or did you put a price tag on it?
They were seeing my artwork and they were saying, "Oh, do you do commissions?"
Yep.
So then they kind of described where they wanted to go, and we worked together with the design, with the commission. Yeah.
How many commissions do you do versus just original artworks that you put up for sale?
Yeah, oddly, it's more than I thought, or more than I planned. It's probably 40% commissions.
Okay. Yep.
At the moment, it's probably 50%. I honestly never thought it would be that. I thought it'd be 2%.
Oh, okay.
Or 5%, I just thought I wanted to paint and and sell. But yeah, it's a lot higher than I originally anticipated.
And what's it been like trying to price your paintings? Because it's a very grey area, as you well know. Did you have to learn how to do that, or was it something come naturally, or just by market forces? How does that work? I'm curiously interested
Initially,
in this.
You take all this advice, right? Because when I was new to it, you take all this advice and you get told so many different methods. You get told benchmarks, you get told price per inch, you get told think of that number of hours, blah, blah, blah. You get bombarded by lots of different methodologies, and you kind of take all that on board. But one of the things that I tell my writers, so I still mentor writers who, when you're writing for something like the Sydney Morning Herald, there's a set rate, right? But when you're writing something for a more private situation, people need to quote. Writers need to quote. And one of the things I always say to them is, even though there's all the benchmarks in the world, sure, find them out, that's fine. But always come down to give it a price that you happy with and you do not resent. So you need to kind of work that out. Say a price to yourself, and if there's any feeling of, I'm going to resent letting it go at that price, you shouldn't. And you need to keep going up until you are happy with the price and you're not going to resent it.
Yep.
Or you can work backwards, you can work down. But that will give you some kind of indication that it is around about the right price, because then it's a win-win. You're happy and you're not going to resent it.
It's good advice. And I mean, it is how long's a piece of string often. And, some people do it on the hours, but really that doesn't bring in the value. And, obviously hours is really hard when it comes to, you might do some artwork really. I'm sure there's been artists who knock up something really quickly and charge, multiples of that time. Indeed, as we know from the art world. And so in terms of, you're now got that business, do you still do any writing? You still like writing?
Yeah, I mean, I usually go in sprints. So I had this period where I was writing for about 18 months, sort of just at the tail end of COVID, just because I wanted to give into my curiosity. I was interested in particular topics, so I started writing regularly for a publication on those topics. But then now I spend more of my time, as I said, mentoring writers, so I will one-on-one critique their writing.
Yep. So if you had to pick between the two, being a writer or an artist, drum roll.
I can't answer that. Well, I think the question is, if I had to pick between an artist and mentoring writers, I really can't pick, because at the moment I'm not writing as much because I love the process of writing, mentoring and editing.
Yep. So speaking of mentoring, I've read in the past where you've had some mentors along the way. How important have they been to your progression?
Oh, I think mentors are really important, and that was something I discovered way too late in life.
Yep.
I wish somebody had told me. I mean, I always knew, of course, about the concept of mentoring,
Yep.
but I think, I don't know why, I never sought one out. One practically had to, you know, um, land in my lap and kind of just say, I'm going to mentor you, which is exactly what he did. I never sought one out. And when I then began that mentoring relationship with that person, it was like, oh my goodness, this is so valuable. This is so useful. So my advice is, don't be like me. Seek out mentors a lot earlier than I ever did.
Was there any moment that a mentor just changed the way you thought about something or sent you on another path, or a pivotal moment in your being the mentee, the mentee journey? Anything spring to mind?
I think that, yes. So the mentor that I was working with initially actually, for my business, so in the world of business.
Yep.
But he himself went down the path of, he had a very, very successful business. It was like in the BRW Fast 200 or whatever, those sorts of things. But he discovered the world of art only just a few years before I did, or a couple of years before I did. So he had gone down that path. So and I did not choose him for that reason at all. I, discovered art along the way, and we just discovered we had these parallel journeys. So it was really beneficial when I was exploring new things and I was wanting to leap instead of ladder climb the world of art. He gave me a lot of confidence and practical advice to be able to do that.
And I guess that's the thing. It's probably not one moment necessarily, but it's just, putting ideas in your head that you can do it, and, advice on little things that in aggregate make up the difference. That's what I've always found. It's often in aggregate, the little things, help you form an opinion or a principle on something that you're searching for. And it's sometimes right in front of your face, and you just need someone to ask the questions and to help get it out of you. And a good mentor obviously has got a lot of experience, and they're not coaching you necessarily. They're just, can play devil's advocate sometimes. In terms of when we've got our audience is, 3 decades. I always say we're in the it's called Crank the Third, because the third kind of professional chapter of people's lives, they get to a point where, is that all there is? They've climbed the corporate ladder, they've run their business, they're just maybe, what's next? What else can I do? Do I want to downsize? Do I want to do a portfolio career? Do I want to do a social enterprise? Do I want to chase a passion over and above maybe what I'm already doing? What's some tips and advice with, how you've gone about it for people who could well be stuck? You've been reinventing all the time, so you've evolved the whole way, but there's some people that haven't kind of evolved much. They've probably done it in their corporate life or their business that they've run, and that's consumed their life, but now want to maybe tackle something a little bit different, or even take on a new business. But just, sometimes the older you get, the more conservative you get too. How can people get out of their own way?
Yeah. 2 things, I think. Number 1, give in to your curiosity.
Yep.
And that curiosity may not be, oh my God, I have this burning desire to be an archaeologist or whatever, right? It might just be you're watching a show on Netflix and you're wondering, what's that building? Well, Google it, and then let yourself go down rabbit holes. So whatever that tiny little thing that you're wondering, even, that then find out. Discover more about that thing that you're wondering about. And that it may go nowhere, but it may lead you down a particular path, because I truly believe that our curiosity is there to guide us to something that we're meant to go, without a doubt. And sometimes we might take detours, that's fine, but always give in to your curiosity, whatever that is. And if you're not curious about something, well, or if you think you're not curious about something, a couple of things, just depending on what floats your boat, go to the bookshop, buy a book that is remotely interesting, and then things in that book might spark things for you. If you're not a reader, then go out, like go to a class or go to a movie or go just something that is not your usual day-to-day kind of thing. So number one, always give in to your curiosity, because for sure it's leading you somewhere that you're actually meant to go. Number two, it's never too late. It's just never too late. And I truly, truly believe that whatever age you are, it's never too late. And if your curiosity is leading you somewhere, even at that age, it is doing so for your either mental or physical health.
Yeah, that's great
I really
advice.
believe that.
And I spoke a few episodes ago to Stanley Johnson, who's creative director, so he's in the advertising world, and he quoted, I can't think of the guy's name, but a very well-known ad agency owner, and about curiosity. And, you know, if you take the bus, he used to say, if you take the bus to work, get off a few stops earlier and walk, you know, go to you said a bookshop. He said, I think something similar, or pick up a book that you normally wouldn't read. Go to a film that you normally wouldn't watch. If you've never been to a soccer match, go to a soccer match, even if you hate soccer, and just observe the world around you. That was more from understanding people and being curious about the world and consumers, but it's exactly the same thing. If you look back on your, can I call it a zigzaggy, technical term, zigzaggy career journey, what has been probably the most unexpected or surprising aspect of your professional evolution, continuing to evolve? Has there been something surprising? You thought, oh, that's different. I didn't expect that.
I never expected that I would go to Cambodia on a holiday and then decide that I was going to support an orphanage, and then with my best friend have to learn everything in the entire supply line, from the silkworm right through to manufacturing, weaving, manufacturing, cutting, pattern making, production, all the way to exporting, importing, learning all about duties, tariffs from developing countries, least developing countries, everything, teaching the people at customs about our own laws, right down to retail, point of sale, window dressing. I never expected that I would have to learn every aspect of that. That was probably unexpected.
Yeah, well, that's multiple unexpectations.
I remember sitting on the floor with the FPOS machine, and my brain was so full, and I just sat there with it open, and I just said to whoever it was, I don't want to learn any more new things today.
Just shows you can still learn. You can still,
yes.
Even when you've had enough, you can get to a point, but you know there's still a bit more learning to go. What's next for Valerie Khoo?
Oh my goodness. That is a very good question. I am going to, without a doubt, continue feeding my curiosity, because that is what just keeps me alive and makes me happy and lights me up. I still definitely have a lot that I want to do with my art career. Fortunately, with the Australian Writers' Centre, I have a wonderful team who I can rely on, and even though I'm very hands-on, and particularly with the students that I mentor, I'm lucky that they can look after a lot of the day-to-day operations. So I like the mix that I have at the moment, but the key thing is I definitely want to just continue. I'm endlessly curious, Trevor. There aren't enough hours in the day.
And when we talk about art too, there's doing the art, but it's a business as well. I mean, You sell direct to consumer. I don't know if you do showings in galleries or...
Yeah, so I sell direct, but I also, for example, have an exhibition on at the moment in the city, in Sydney. It's at the Bendigo Bank Art Gallery space in Darling Square in Sydney. And it is, I have a joint exhibition with a ceramicist called Michelle Cox, and the theme is reinvention. So...
there you go. So is Michelle reinvented, has she?
Yes, she has reinvented from corporate to creative as well.
Fantastic. Oh, I guess the good thing with art is that we can see it. You know, it's so tangible for people to see. You know, if I just said, I've done this day job and I'm a writer at night, and if I haven't got anything published, there's no sort of artifact there. It's a little bit different than when you're actually running a business and it's not a hobby anymore, and it's basically 50% of your life at the moment, which is fantastic. you've probably got multiple ways that people can contact you, but, you know, if they want to see your art and everything, what's the best way to follow you?
The easiest way is either Instagram or LinkedIn. So whatever you're most comfortable with, and you're welcome to ask me any questions via Instagram or LinkedIn for that matter.
Yep.
But yeah, they're the ones that I'm probably on the most.
And your website, valeriekoo.com, is that right?
Yep, correct. So that's ValerieKhoo.com.
Fantastic. And if you like painted flowers, oil painted flowers, definitely check out Valerie's stuff. And of course, she's got books and she speaks and she curates and she knows her economics as well. So Valerie, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed, you know, I sort of knew your journey, but there's a lot of other things in there in and about I didn't realise. And thank you for sharing all your stories and your tips and advice for the show.
It's been such a pleasure and such an honour, Trevor. Thank you.
Thanks very much.